Welcome to another episode of Not for the Weak-Minded. My name is Keith Sanders. I'm the author of this channel, and today I'm going to show you all my blueprints from start to finish, to show you my progression and to show you how I've come to this. Now, it's taken me a long time to actually draw this itself. This is I'm in the 4th week, and as you can see, I've still not finished. But there's so much going on out there that, albeit this is important, there's other information that people need to know about everything. And so these blueprints I'm going to show you essentially are a progress through time, starting with the Book of Enoch. Now, if you've listened to my other videos about Freemasonry, essentially they revere this book, and it's in their teachings, to say, you know, that they know the truth, these people, but unfortunately their arms are twisted, some of them, so to speak, because they can't actually tell us the truth like I am, you know, the people in charge, because they're scared the living shit out of most people, right? You know, you start talking about things that they've never even thought about or really want to discuss. So anyway, as I said, this all started from the Book of Enoch, and essentially within it, it discusses about the events of creation and the 4 corners of the earth and stuff like that. And I was like, and other channels were just questioning these things within the Bible, like, what does it really mean? So I was like, well, that's quite interesting. And I think it relates to geometry, because at that point in my mind, I had a feeling that everything's based on circles and cycles, but I couldn't prove it. And so I had to start doing blueprints, right? So the first blueprint I did, and I've done individual videos about this each blueprint. But what you got to bear in mind is that as I've gone through time trying to get this right, obviously I can't prove this right without having this right, if that makes sense. And so I've had to focus more on this to try and get this right, to prove my other blueprints right, which has just been crazy. You know, it's been a long journey to get here, as you'll see, you know, with the blueprints, as I'm going to show you. I've got them all laid out as they went. So the first one, I'm going to zoom it, like show you, has to do with space-time itself, 3,600 years, and essentially how that is divided into 3, the Trinity, right? Everything is dualistic in this reality, but essentially there are rules that apply to the 3 too, including time. And as they do that, you know, the Golden Age, the Dark Ages, etc., and you know, like the Stone Ages as well, and stuff, you know. So there's a lot to it to understand that there's things to do with 3, and this is kind of why they do it on the television, you know, the Trinity, all the time, because it has multiple meanings as well, multiple. So that was the first one, and essentially, if I'm just going to read it out, you know, the Great Cycle, which is the Alpha and the Omega. Now, obviously, this is related to other stuff in the Bible to do with Jesus and the end of days, right? And how truth comes back around again in a cycle. We'll get around to this. But essentially, everything relates to frequencies and water. And the stars, you know, rotating around us today are, in fact, increasing in frequency, which is why today a lot of people are waking up. You know, a lot of the children today are being born with more abilities than what we had 20 years ago, you know, because the stars are raising their frequencies. This is kind of what the elite are trying to battle in terms of reality. You know, this is why they've lied to you your whole entire lives, right, about everything, to actually build devices under the guise of science to lower the frequency of the earth. You see what I'm saying? You know, the particle accelerators, you know, across the earth, which is part of me trying to do this as well, trying to explain to you that essentially artificial intelligence is controlling the weather now through the programming of the globe Earth model itself, you know, which actually is based upon the perfect circle, you know, but there's much more to do. So anyway, that was the first one about time, you know, and how the equinoxes and equinoxes aligned with their axis as well and stuff like that. There's other things to know. I mean, I've done videos about how the Earth aligns with space as well, you know, and all there's 7 clusters that go around the Earth. And yeah, I can show you other stuff to do with the programming. Let's say the program, the 100, the last season. And yet there's from above the place they're living, you can see there's 7 like little islands, you know. So there's something to that too. The 7 races of humanity. You know, these numbers keep coming up, and numerology is very important. So you know, the Trinity, the duality. 7 is a very important number too to creation. 7 days in a week, etc. Now, eventually, yeah, I'm going to go through my blueprints more, but everything to do with this is based upon power 3, 6, and 9, and that added up is 18. Now, in the book of Enoch, it speaks about there being 18 hours in the day, and that at the end of every full month, right, there should be a full moon. So at the end of every month, there should be a full moon. Now, we don't see that today at all because time's wrong, you see. They've messed with time, and therefore we don't actually know time at all, which is kind of why I'm trying to do this today, to make you see that you don't know time, and then to make you understand time. That is based upon this and the perfect circle. So the second drawing I did was about frequencies, and this is about, albeit you can watch my videos, you'll see that this is another one that I've done previously. Please ignore all the other lines on top. Just look at the blueprint itself and how the colors go around and how that relates to light. You see? So there, and consciousness and frequencies, and the higher the frequency, the higher the color, right? So purple is a higher frequency color, and violet, etc., is the highest. So that if you were to imagine this is the Earth, like the most high essentially would live up here, right? In this area, because that's the highest frequency band, right? If that makes sense. Like, we're nowhere near that consciousness, you know what I mean? Which is not even a body itself, you know what I mean? You know, that when you get to space, most people, it's just souls, you know what I'm saying? It's energy and it's other things, you know what I mean? And it's beyond most people, because we can't, you know, unless you experience it, you can't describe these things, right? So anyway, I've done the next blueprint was about how each frequency can create certain things, right? And I was wondering whether, if anyone knows this or not, can sound create, make it cold? You know, can certain frequencies make it cold? Because if that's the case, I think there's like a. Now we'll come back to this when we do this the stars blueprint itself, because these are my original just sketches and ideas. But essentially, you'll see that I've written on here. You see this drawing where each note relates to colors and how that could be related to the 12 events of creation, which is why I'm obviously saying to this everything relates to frequencies, right? So, and sounds. And so there has to be some kind of mechanism to do with sound and the cycles is what I'm thinking. Now, obviously, I'm still trying to prove this, but I need this to be right. So the next one was about toroidal fields and how basically I think there's potentially 7 worlds, you know, like going through the Earth. Space being top one, so to speak. Again, that's something that I need to try and prove. But the toroidal field stuff and how the stars rotate around us is actually part of the mechanisms that govern space. So there is something to this, and I aim to prove it. Again, it's just a sketch. So the next one is actually a blueprint, and this is, you know, based upon the power of 3, 6, and 9. Now, a couple of videos ago, I was saying how each of these ones here, hold on, right at the stop, right at the, hold up, right at the beginning, right at the middle, it's got like one wedge, essentially, like Trivial Pursuit almost, and how basically there's like 12 knights that sort of like control the 144,000, let's call them, that basically bring back knowledge to the earth and how they control each section. And now, obviously, you know, there's more to prove about that. That's just based upon this blueprint, right? But the knights, you know, the knights of the round table and stuff like that, I kind of think this is where it relates to sacred geometry. You know, sometimes I'll say things and I don't make the connections to things until I say it. And that's to do with my pineal gland and other connections that I have, you know, my halo and the fact that things are coming through me all the time now, you know, and sometimes, like I said, information comes to me now and I don't even, it just comes out. So there's another blueprint to do with the level, some of the levels. And essentially, you can see that from this one, I believe kind of space is slow. So it's kind of sloped like that. And the water comes down into the dome. And essentially, the water from space is part of the earth itself, you know what I mean? And there's kind of like plumbing involved where the water can come in, or etc. And this one here is space. And this is the earth with the dome around it, as above, so below. Okay. Now going back to the other blueprint, this one quickly with the as above, so below. Now light itself can create heat. You know, sound creates light, but sound also creates heat. Yes, and essentially that ideology has to do with as above, so below as well, and other things that potentially do with another light at the center of the dome that's got a timer potentially. You know, I mean, this whole reality is programmed in a way, but it's not a simulation. It's a creation, and it goes into trying to understand that what the elites are doing today is actually emulating everything to do with this reality, with technologies, and how you yourself, as I said before, relate to technologies. You know, and everything's, you know, sacred geometry, etc. You know, everything points to creation. So this was a small one I did about time, space-time. Now this one here is based upon Wikipedia, and essentially, you know, is a lie, right? Now what you got to bear in mind is that Pisces essentially should be in January's position, right? But it's not. It's in December. Yeah. So Pisces is associated with fish gods and the return of knowledge from the heavens. This is the way it is, you know. It's time. Unfortunately, most people don't really understand the time we live in because they don't see the world around them falling apart. You know what I mean? They don't see the fact that the sun's changed and it's now a sun simulator, which has been patented, you know, since 1965. You know, I hope I didn't miss any bit of my hair. I'm gonna check. You know, and I can show you the back. I can show you the articles to show that they built this thing in Germany, for example. You know what I mean? So the next one was just one based upon colors again. And essentially how it kind of looks like there's an eye at the center, you know? Frequency-based reality. Next, I did a pyramid one. Again, without the pyramids, we wouldn't exist. And that isn't the ones in Egypt. These are the ones that are 3 or 4 times the size of them that give off 2 different types of energies, you know, a positive and a negative one. If you go look at, you know, the strangest places on the earth, mountains are part of that. You know, the mystery. But you got to bear in mind, there's a lot of the mountains are not mountains; they're carved out animals, and you know what I mean, and stuff like that have been turned to stone, you know, through time. Obviously, petrification. But the gods, the both the underworld, in a way, associated with mountains and stuff going on in the mountain and under the mountain, etc. But also the gods live in the mountains as well, you know what I mean, as it says in the Bible, you know what I mean, and other literature and across the earth, you know, the gods live in the mountains. You know what I'm saying? Bases, really, is what you got to see, is alien bases, or not alien, but just terrestrial beings that have got an alien body but a good soul, right? So anyway, the next one I did was actually trying to work out the land masses based on the same blueprint. And again, you got to see that I was trying to use geometry to map the earth and how this relates through time, you know, because a lot of people would see this and go, well, there's not land, there's water there and there's water there, and the land isn't one big landmass, right? Wrong. It is. Absolutely. In fact, if this is a giant tree at the center of the earth, if this map blueprint's right, one, if this is a giant tree, the roots go across the entire earth and everything else is on top of it. And also it talks about all the other animals being around that tree. And essentially, what you see in geology is that they're large animals, right? So secondly, when you see that there's large boats, large ships that have basically been smashed into this bit, you might get the concept, if this is right, obviously, if there's a ship there, very large one, that things were obviously much larger in the past to build it to begin with. And secondly, that there has to be land out there for that to even be there, right? Water and land outside here. So I don't think the globe earth model at all has actually mapped the entirety of what there is to be mapped. Full stop. You know what I'm saying? And that either way, if this is reversed, when I do it, hopefully you'll see in a month's time, once this one's finished and I get the next blueprint printed, just the skeleton, of course, that there'll be a giant tree going around the outside, and that yet still this thing's not mapped here. And yet that will be stuff that's related to inside this bit, right? Which I know it's got ancient culture on it. So I am at a minute confused as to which way it goes. But if it goes the other way, it's even more unimaginable, and I can't see it. I've been changing my mind and iron about this for about 2 weeks now. I think it's this way now. Don't take my word for it though. So anyway, back to the blueprints. The next one I thought I'd try and do was like the same, but based on time and another frequency drawing. And again, these are wrong. Every single one of these is wrong, but they're based upon something that's truthful. It's the perfect circle, 3, 6, and 9. You know. So then I decided to try and do a mandala, and this was my first attempt just to give it a go, and how it looks like a UFO. And essentially, then I actually did a mandala. Now I didn't have a yellow, and unfortunately, if I did, I would have put the yellow in there as well. But this took me 60 plus hours to do, and it's all done by hand and by lines, based on angles. You see what I'm saying? So everything, and if you look carefully, look at the geocentrism of it. This proves the Earth, to me, has levels and is intelligent design. So does the other blueprint. If you put them together, hold on. You know, something like this and this together with the Earth, understanding that it's been done with machines, you know, and that things are far more complicated than what we could ever have imagined this Earth to be, you know. So next, here we go. All the failed attempts. This is my first attempt. Bit too close. See it? I can't see that. I'm going to have to stand to the side. But essentially, epic failure. Another attempt. Epic failure. Back to the drawing board. I thought, how am I going to work this out? That, unfortunately, I thought was truth. Another failure. Here's what? Another failure. Now this one is half right because, except, you know, this is just imagine the northern hemisphere mapped in, and unfortunately this is 0 at the center, which is where I was going wrong the whole time. You know, I misrepresented the Gleason model map and my own. It's my own stupidity, really. The problem is that I couldn't potentially draw that by my hand. All the things I'm showing you now are drawn by hand. You know, including the geocentric circles. I mean, look. I did it all by hand. You know what I mean? Hours and hours and hours of work. And guess what? It's half right. But it wasn't right. And so I decided to try again. And essentially, this is half right again. And I had the same problem because I put it 0 at the center. And I'm not, basically I did it in quarters. So there's that quarter. Hold on. There's that quarter. That was that corner. And they're wrong, you know, this one's wrong. However, it gives you a good example of what to expect if it's the other way around. So, hold on. That this, in fact, if you look carefully, will go all the way around the entire Earth. If I was to map it the other way around, doing this model instead. Do you see what I'm saying? So if I was to remap this inverted, this would be an entire wall going around like that, you know, as it is like this. So it was almost right, but it wasn't right. And that's because I didn't have the equator going around like that. It's simple. I couldn't really, simple as that, really. So eventually I stuck it all together. And I should have just done it with this one. This is what you see when it was all stitched together. You see? Now imagine that going all the way around the Earth. Is that right or not? Is there actually a giant tree at the center of the Earth and all its branches go out? And again, this was half right, but not right. But it gave me this blueprint, and this blueprint is essentially this blueprint. You know what I'm saying? You see how, you know, the northern hemisphere goes around as I've drawn here, like this. Meets up to here, goes around. It's the same thing, except for I didn't have the southern hemisphere, right? Because 0 was here instead of here. Right? So I've been through a lot of processes to get to here in the first place. And to be fair, I mean, it's like looking for your keys and looking for someone in your pocket or something like your keys and looking in the last pocket. Yeah, you know what I mean? So there's more. This is space-time now. So the next one I did was space-time. Now this blueprint I've done a video about as well. And most of the blueprints I've done videos about separately. But I'm just trying to show you that there's a great deal of knowledge to be done with the cycles and circles, and time itself is also based upon the same principle, you see. And so this was in fact physically created with machines and intelligent design, but it's so preposterous because a lot of people don't want to believe that things were much larger in the past, right? And that giants once walked the earth, and in fact evidence of it is all over the map. You know, the fact that they got temples all up in here under the water, all over here. You know, you've got river, I say this, like springs, let's call them, that just appear out of nowhere, like water sources that just appear from up underneath. I'm going to show you these things from the imagery, but you know what I'm saying? The evidence for what the Bible and what the ancient literature speaks of is verifiably within the drawing itself, really. You know what I'm saying? And giant ships that here, right there, I've drawn in a giant head that's just let this there, you know. So let's go back to space-time, because a lot of people obviously need to know more about this than most things, but it's understanding that everything is based on circles and cycles. Now today, because most of you believe a lie, they're using this truth today to convince you that you are a hologram, a simulation, not knowing that people like Elon Musk are actually in charge of holographic technologies, right? The fact that he's building a particle accelerator to destroy the Earth 3 times the size of CERN, right? Connected to Denver Airport. You know, the guy's the devil, and people, you know, on a billionth chance, but because he's got power and fame, people would rather believe they're a hologram than actually physically created artificial intelligence with free will to think for themselves. You know what I'm saying? Your eyes tell you the truth, unfortunately, and you've got to read between the lines with everything you see on the television. You know what I mean? I watch hours and hours and hours of television. Hours. You know what I mean? I can't do it as much today because it annoys me. You know, all I see is the signs and symbols, and I go, well, I know that's a lie, though. You know what I mean? And it irritates the hell out of me. So, yeah, time itself. So now you've got to imagine the Earth inside here, and this is the dome. And everything you've been told is a lie, you know, that there's cycles and that there's 7 clusters that go around the Earth, and that they match on the Earth somewhere, that the alignments of the stars and the Earth are essential for our existence. You know what I mean? Without it, we wouldn't exist. Just like events of creation, which I'm trying to prove through this with my blueprints. Now, I think Hawaii is near one of them, and obviously Hawaii is here. No, wait, here. So I have to do a lot of stuff with this and my blueprints still. I have to put my blueprints on top of this to see where everything is, to see if I'm right in the first place. Do you understand? So even not, I have to make a new blueprint, right? But I think my blueprints are right. I need this to be right, and I think it is now. It's just which way it is, and then I just, you know, add my blueprints on top, and we'll see what happens. But essentially, you know, time is based on the perfect circle, and 3,600 years, as I was saying, and it's divided into 3, and you know, 1,200 years of peace and prosperity, and then, you know, through time it gets lost, and then all that knowledge gets picked up again by people from the underworld as they come out, because the frequencies are much lower. I can't really show you, but I can tell you, for example, like, you know, the lion resonates, you know, at E5 or E sharp, yeah, E5 at 649.3 hertz at a length of 52.38 centimeters. So I'm saying, and you work upon the same principles because your body's water and so is space. So all these things here relate to your chakras. You see what I'm saying? And how your body relates to the knowledge of the rainbow, you see? And how we ourselves actually are of a higher level of consciousness within our own body to ascend, essentially, to a higher level of consciousness. But you must know truth, right? And know that in your mind to be true. You know, belief again comes down to a lot of it, as we've discussed in other videos. Now, time itself, as you know, is a lie, because you don't see a full moon at the end of the month. Nothing's based upon the cycles and circles within 3,600 year cycles, and essentially ancient history and recent history are a lie because of that same fact. So I've done another thing about the Sumerian king list. Now, this is very hard. I've done all things about these videos, every single one I've done individually. But you see, obviously, within this, Tootsie is a lot of names, a lot of dates, in particular their reigns and how long they lasted. And they have multiples of 3,600 years up to the Great Deluge. And then that's when history, it's going to be pieced back together properly, because some of these people have multiple dates, because of translations, because of missing texts, because of everything. I mean, if people walk around thinking they know time itself and creation, when it took, what's it? When 8 kings ruled for 241,200 years, right? God kings that were part of creating this place. Giants. The matter is that who created the giants, and then where did the giants come from, and then how did this world come to be in the first place, right? So they tell us all the time that we live under the sea, right? Anyway, the list continues for another 2, and as you see, as you go through time, it gets more and more degraded. Our lifespans, and even science has proved that we've genetically got a marker at 120. Obviously, science is pushing that to the boundary with medicines and certain medicines. But we've got a natural body clock of 120 years. And again, that's something that says in the texts. So it's very interesting to see the degradation through time as well. And that this theory really is about devolution of not just our species, because we are created upon other species, but it's the degradation of other species that existed, which we're a part of, if that makes sense. Because we're chimeras, we are a chimera hybrid, by all means, created. So again, the list continues, and then what you got to bear in mind is where it stops. That's not the end of the list. It carries on probably for another 6,000 years, and obviously I've not done that. And even when I do that, I've got to try and put it all back into 3,600 year of cycles. I ain't got time for it. Literally, I don't. So then I did a pyramid blueprint. As I said, without the pyramids, we wouldn't exist in the first place. And essentially how these relate to energies being transmitted as above, so below. Like, for example, I do not remember the guy's name, but there's a researcher out there that he basically used electromagnetic field detection with drones and hovered above over 90 pyramids of the earth, and found out that they actually increase in energy as they go higher, meaning that energy is coming down, not up, from the pyramids. See what I'm saying? So the stars are part of are actually emitting energy down to the pyramids, And the fact is that the ones in Egypt obviously are not a tomb; there are resonant chambers in them, but it's the dark side of the emulation of the technological creation again. That those things were designed to control species which still today have no free will. Programmed beings that did have free will, like some of the grey aliens and that type of stuff in abductions. Lastly, per the blueprints, the spiral and the Fibonacci sequence is key to understanding everything too. And I believe this and the toroidal fields play a massive, significant role in how space rotates around the Earth, including obviously water and sonoluminescence, etc. This is much more to prove by this because, again, I need my blueprint to be right. Also, I need to know that, sir, I need to work out how level the Earth is, you know, which way it is first. You know, as I said, I got probably another month to go before I even do the other blueprint either way, which I will. I have to. It's got to done. But this video is about simulation theory anyway. So all these things you need to know it's not simulation. Like you are a physical creation. Like undoubtedly, like this world is created with intelligent design, and that today you all have a purpose to use truth and your energies within your body to bring change, massive change, like for everyone, for the benefit of everyone. Because history is repeating itself, so we need to get in tune with the cycles, you see, with everything, and then it'll come full circle again. We'll have a contribution-based society, you know, where it was built by women and protected by men. You know, people don't kind of understand the concepts of the ancient past when it was all based on selflessness, and because the stars were on higher energy, that those two people living on the earth had a higher level of consciousness, you know, which is awareness, and awareness is the truth of themselves and how they live their own existence, which sadly today most people don't know, right? And because of centuries of lies about reality itself, the truth is being used so wholeheartedly in a way to convince you of centuries of lies with truth, you know, about everything. It's that deep, but unfortunately it's like you got to go back to go forward in a way. You got to see that, for example, all the experiments about the earth being spinning was proved the earth to be stationary 100%, and that they were seen as failures without, you know, and that they just carried on regardless, making stuff up ever since, you know, just to keep everybody enslaved, you know, not just the people that in the Western world now, but now it's enslaved the entire world. You know, you look around you, the whole world is around you, you know, all nations walk amongst each other today, and you know, we've got so many divides and barriers already. It's impossible. So anyway, this is another blueprint I've done about the simulation theory and essentially the possibility of two worlds outside our own. One being that we do live in a simulation. Secondly, things I've been saying, that we live in the sea under another world, and this place was created with intelligent design by the giants. And then the giants was created because they came from another world that was part of the world outside this one. And then obviously there's been here trying to do whatever it is they've been doing in this earth for a long time. But essentially it's a prison. You know, it says it was a prison, and it is a prison, but you're not the prisoner. You know, you're the guard. You're the gardener and the guard. Most of you, but you don't know it. You know what I mean? You don't know that you were born to protect the earth from the things that you've been learning your whole entire lives, you know, from the people that are teaching you those lies in the first place, to protect all life, because it's dying. All life is dying, and it's because of the mass mind control. And yet you've got programs on the television about brainwashing, you know, about the Nazis being brainwashed, and technologies today that can literally like control you, literally in mind and thought and body, right? And you don't twig that you're being brainwashed your whole entire lives. You know, the programming's telling you, man, wake up, but you're not waking up. Oh, this is why I have to do these things. Sadly, only one person's watching this at the minute. Thank you, though, by the way, whoever you are. But basically, the possibility of two worlds outside our own is, you know, that's that. Can only be one way or the other. And 10 years ago, I thought about simulation theory. Tell me not, like, it was already in my mind. And I go against that now. Next, extraterrestrials. Essentially, ignore the colors, essentially, but they look all different types of shapes and sizes, and there's so many. In fact, there's lots. There's so many different species. That's so many, but they're good and bad. You know what I mean? As I'm saying, there's good ones and bad ones. I mean, I've had an experience where, let's say, the stereotypical devil, you know, the red head and the horns, has come to me. You know what I mean? No, I don't. Wow, I don't know whether he was trying to attack me or whatever, but I was meditating, and essentially, it was the only time I've ever experienced this, by the way, through my unorthodox meditation methods of basically putting my hands there and closing my ears off. You can hear your brain tick. Essentially, you can hear your brain like a computer operation system, and essentially from that you see cymatic patterns and frequencies and colors. But one time it all just went white, and all of a sudden I just saw this bright white light all around me like a halo, and after it just slowly disappeared, and then straight after, the devil's face was right in my face. You know what I mean? So I told it to go away. You know what I mean? Go away. That's what I'm saying. But these things that are depicted are genuine. You know what I mean? And generally probably real too. You know what I mean? And albeit they're in the cartoons, a lot of these beings look, you know, very similar to what you see on the television nowadays. But they're way more than what you've ever imagined. And George Lucas knew that, which is why, for example, he wanted in his original ones to put way more, you know, aliens in it, but they shut it down. You know, the producers, no way. So I'm saying there was a time it wasn't ready. People aren't ready for aliens. They're ready for them now. It just matters of opinion whether you think they're the good guys or the bad guys. I'm going to say they're both, which is why you have to choose wisely, right? Which side you're on today. So you're on the Zionist elite, but you're on the gods and creator and the creation. You know, you against creation or you for creation, because that is what it. Oops, that's what it all boils down to. So the last drawing I'm going to show you has to do with the same subject, extraterrestrials, and I'm going to do a video about this later on. I'll just because I think it's going to be one to do where people will just join randomly and hopefully they'll just listen about Game of Thrones, about dragons and their symbology and what it means about ancient history and now history repeating itself, and you know, the return of the dragon, Quetzalcoatl, the Viracocha, the feathered serpent. What did you ever want to call it? Enki. You know what I mean? The return of the beginning in Pisces, where all knowledge comes back because the gods return. So angels, UFOs, and dragons are all related to each other in a way through mythology, through translations, and through understanding symbologies through ancient culture and ancient history. There was a one world culture of sin across the earth that got washed away and eradicated for going against what they were meant to be in the first place. Because this is a prison, the souls in here, in this prison, were put here by the people outside this place, you know, in a time when, in the time of the Titans or wherever, when if they created the giants and then the giants created this. So it's incomprehensible for too many people, really, to comprehend that they're not a simulation, and yet everything they've been tricked with is about holographic technologies today, you know, 10 technologies which they're deceiving their subconscious mind every day on the television. You know, whether that's basically shape-shifting aliens, whether that's technology that can, you know, make them blend in and break, you can see it, or clones, you know what I mean? There's just so much of it. Anyway, thank you for listening. The only one person, I appreciate it. The video will do the rounds to the people that care and want to know the truth. And that's all I can do, you know? You got to feed your mind. And unfortunately, most people, you know, they don't want to feed their mind at all. So cheers. Hope you have a great day. And speak to you soon. My blueprint will be finished. Well, I'm going to start it as soon as I've ended this. So it's all right. Bye now.